Good evening, everybody. This is Pastor Sonja, and welcome to KickBack here at Greater Life Church. Pastor Brown is still in Israel. We continue to lift him up. Pray that the Lord blesses be upon him. But thank you, sir, so much for allowing me this opportunity to share with our friends and family on tonight for just a little while. Pastor Brown on Sunday talked from, his message came from John, the 21st chapter, and believe it or not, that's exactly the same scripture that I had been reading and meditating on. So it works out perfect. We're just going to pick up again in John 21. And then I want to share with you on redeemed, refreshed, and restored. That's what we're going to talk about today. That's what we're going to see in this passage. You know, Pastor Brown talked about the more that we trust, there'll be greater blessings. And the more that we trust, there will be, clarity. And the more that we trust, there'll even be more to come. And so that follows up exactly with what the Lord had dropped in my spirit, just in a little different way. So let's go ahead and get to it. If you grab your scriptures and turn to John 21, it starts with, after this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, or your version may say the Sea of Galilee. And he did it in this way. Simon, Peter, and Thomas, the denier and the doubter, who's called Didymus, the twin, and Nathanael from Cana of Galilee, as well as the sons of Zebedee, which we know as James and John, the sons of thunder, and the two others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." And they said, "Well, we're coming with you." So they went out and got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. As morning was breaking, Jesus came and he stood on the beach. However, the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. So Jesus said to them, "Children, do you have any fish?" They answered, "No." And he said to them, "Well, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast, and then they were not able to haul in because of the great catch of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved and said to Peter, "It is the Lord." So when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer tunic, for he had stripped down to work, and threw himself into the sea and swam to the shore. But the other disciples came in the small boat, and they were not far, because they were not far from the shore, only about 100 yards away, dragging the net full of fish. So when they got on the beach and they saw the charcoal fire set up and the fish that was cooking on it and bread, Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish which you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net to land, full of large fish, 153. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. I'm just going to stop right there, although we're going to talk a little bit about the rest of the chapter as well. But I just want to start with, when we look at verses 1-3, we can really relate. I love the way John starts this and says, "After this." Well, he said that in another place, "After this." Well, after what? We saw in Acts that it was after convincing proofs, after he had been put to death, and after he had been resurrected, then he appeared to them. Well, after this, John says, those convincing proofs of miracles and signs, because Jesus had appeared to them 2 other times. Well, then he appeared on the seashore. He appeared on the Sea of Tiberias. And you know what? Where else did Jesus appear to the disciples? Pre-resurrection. Again, on the Sea of Galilee, when he called them to be fishers of men. They were doing the exact same thing. So sometimes people get a little cross with, should they have gone back fishing? Because we see that it was Simon Peter. It starts Simon Peter and Thomas. I don't think it's a mistake that John starts with those two. Okay, it's a reason why he starts with them, because you had the denier and you had the doubter, the two who were, I'll never leave you, and you got to show me some serious proof for me to believe that you've come back alive. So he started with those two, and then you see the others as well. Well, here's something that I think is interesting for us to note. Right there in verse 2, Jesus is already calling us to unity, because you had, a Peter, and you had John and James that were ordinary fishermen, but then you had Nathaniel, who was a business person. You had a Thomas, the doubter, the conscientious. Obviously, that tells us he's a conscientious person, a conscientious thinker. And so right here together, God is still bringing us together in unity. We don't have to be the same. We can be different in our calling, in our background, but all coming together. And so sometimes people say, well, they shouldn't have gone fishing. They had been called out to be fishers of men, but look, they're going back to the same thing. Was it they got frustrated? Rather, they didn't see what was happening, even though Jesus had appeared twice, where they're now saying, you know what? All is lost. We're not going to do anything different. We might as well just go back to what it is that we know. But I want to say this was a setup for a step up. And the reason why is because not only did Jesus appear again at the Sea of Galilee like he did before at the initial calling, but also he says, hey, have y'all caught anything? Didn't he say that before? He asked them, have you caught anything? And they said no. But Peter at that time argued with him back and forth. Why should we cast our nets? Well, he didn't do it this time. They just went ahead and cast their nets over to the right side of the boat. And guess what? John was like, I remember this. This has happened before. Wait a minute. Okay, yeah. And when it happened before and we caught all those fish, so this is the Lord. This is he. And Peter just hops in the water. Impulsive Peter, impetuous Peter, just jumps in the water and goes on to land. So, God first, or Jesus first, redeems them. He goes back to the same place to call them once again to do the same miracle that he's done before, to show them that I am always with you. And even though you may think things have changed, as far as I'm concerned, they haven't. Let that be a word to us as well. Maybe God needs to remind you and redeem you to what he's already called you to, that you think things have changed. You think all have lost. You think you've messed up. You think that, oh no, there is no way I can be used. Well, let this be an example to you that you may think things have changed, but Jesus doesn't necessarily believe things that have changed. Well, then when we see on from 9, when they come to the beach, and look what it says. When they got there, there was a charcoal fire set up and fish was already cooking. Now he asked them if they've caught anything and to bring what they had and add it to the fire, but there was fish already there. What is that telling us? That, you know what, we need to get involved where God is involved. He's already working and he already can provide provision. He goes from redeemed to refreshing. He has food cooking. And sometimes when we get weary and we get tired, we need to go back to the bread of life, and be refreshed, because it's real easy to be renewed, to get, depressed, to be worn out. If they had been fishing and hadn't caught anything, they were probably tired. So when Jesus calls them to shore, and even though he says bring fish, he has fish already there. That's also telling us about his supernatural power. Jesus can provide provision for us in supernatural ways. How did the fish get there? How did the bread? When did he make the fire? Who knows? And it doesn't matter, except that Jesus is able to make it happen. And when he does, it is enough. When he supernaturally provides, it is enough. It is exactly what we need when we need it. How did he make those 12 fish turn in, feed the 5,000? Those 2 loaves of fish feed the 5,000. How did they have 12 baskets left over? But either way, it was enough to feed everybody, and it was enough left over for the disciples. So Jesus, what he does and provides for us sometimes is supernatural. So we can rest in those provisions that he gives to us. But then guess what? There's a little tip there that I find very interesting. They saw a charcoal fire set up on the beach that was cooking fish, and Jesus tells them to come. Where else do we know or we hear about a charcoal fire? The only other place is in the book of John, and it's when Peter denied. So we go from being redeemed. Hey guys, are you catching anything? Come on back. Jesus appearing at the same place where he called them the first time to say, I'm calling you again. Things haven't changed. And then he refreshes them because they've been through a lot. So come and eat. But he does it by charcoal fire, the place where Peter denied him with a little girl in the courtyard. So now he's moving to restore. He's redeemed, he's refreshed, and he's going to restore, because he says, come, have breakfast. And you know what? They were like, I'm not going to ask who it is, because we know who it is. And Jesus breaks bread. Where did that happen? That happened in the upper room. He breaks bread. So they're watching all this and they're like, oh yeah, we know who this is. We know another convincing proofs. But then he draws Peter aside. And at the charcoal fire where he denied him, is beside the charcoal fire that Jesus restores him. And we see from 15 on down to 19, Jesus proceeds to restore Peter. He said, Peter, do you love me? Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? And Peter goes, now, Lord, come on, you know that I love you. But Peter is using a different translation of the word. When Jesus asked, he was using the word agape. He was saying, you know what? That total commitment, devotion, and sacrifice. Is that the love you have for me? That agape love, that what made me give my life for you? But Peter is saying, no, I phileo you, Lord, and you know that. Okay, a close personal friend. I've walked with you. And so I see now that everything you said was true. And Jesus said, well, okay, then feed my lambs. But then he asked him again, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And he used agape again. And Peter said, well, yes, Lord, you know that I love you, again with that deep personal affection kind of love, that close friend. He used then phileo. Okay, we know that's where the word Philadelphia come from. So friend. And Jesus said, well, you know what? Shepherd my sheep. The way I fed you, the way I've trained you, that's what I want you to do. And now the way I've looked out for you and I've protected you, then I want you to do that. Shepherd then my sheep. And then he asked him again, but he went ahead and changed it. to the definition that Peter was using, the translation of love, the phileo, because he said, you know what? I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm trying to pull you up. But if all we can do is start with a close personal friendship, then that I will do. And Peter was so grieved because he said, why do you keep asking me? You know all things, Lord. And yes, God knows all things. So that's why he's willing to meet us right where we are and start with right what we have to move us on where he wants us to be. Because the call hadn't changed, but he needed to restore Peter so that he could stand up on that day of Pentecost and preach his word like no other. And in unity, all these different people, all these different disciples, different backgrounds, and all these people then coming, hearing in their language, saying, what is this? Who are these men? And from there, they proceed to turn the world upside down. Friends, God will restore. Don't ever get discouraged and think, you know what, that I might as well just go back to what I knew, go back to the world, go back to living the way I was living, go back to doing what I was doing. No, 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 no. Let God redeem you and he'll meet you right where he called you the first time. All right. If you're by your bed in prayer, if you're laying in your bed, if you're out in your car, if you're working, God will appear. He'll manifest his presence and remind you that guess what? The call hasn't changed. And when you hear that, look for him to refresh you like he did with Elijah. He told Elijah what was going to happen, but Elijah still went running. He even said a widow then is going to feed you, the ravens, the widow, and then the brook's going to dry out. But I have provided for you, and it's always enough. It's always supernatural. It's always sufficient. But from there, I want to restore you or maybe even renew the commitment so that you can run on and continue the work that I've called you to do. Thank you so much, Lord, that you don't give up on us, that you stay the course with us. You're willing to give provision, Father. You're willing to give us rest, and you're willing, most of all, Father, to renew and help us to continue on to fulfill the destiny and the call that you have on our lives. So I look at this and I go, you know what? It really was a setup for a step up. So maybe what is the Lord saying to you? Where do you fall? Is that all three? I need redemption today. I need restoration today. I need to be restored and renewed today. Or you know what? It's just one of those areas. But I pray that this will minister to you and you'll hear the call of God and you will take the action to go forward with what he's called, because it hasn't changed. In Jesus' name. Be blessed, and thank you guys so much. Have a great evening, and we'll see you Sunday.